okay, and it stops, this spool is going to keep moving a little bit, which causes the line to come off, and it causes what they call bird nest, rat's nest, backlash, all those things. Disengage that to allow you to cast, and when you cast, the line will come off the top in a circular motion of the spool itself. How's it going, KastKing fans? Welcome back to another video. I'm Ethen Preston from Preston Outdoors, and today's video I want to talk to you about the differences between a spinning setup and a bait casting setup. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell icon here for the KastKing channel. Starting with a spinning setup, what we're going to do is talk about the rod here. Some major differences, as you can see right away, is that the eye loops on a spinning rod are at the bottom, and so is the reel seat, and the spinning reel itself will be sitting at the bottom when you're holding the combo. One of the major differences between the spinning and bait casting setups is definitely we have to talk about the reel. The major difference is obviously you have a bail here. Disengage that to allow you to cast, and when you cast, the line will come off the top in a circular motion of the spool itself. And for the most part, you're only going to have one handle to reel it in. Either engage the reel by flipping it over like that with your hand, or you're going to turn and allow that handle to re-engage your bail. So the bail is going to spin around the spool, and the spool will move up and down as you tighten up your line. There you go, one of the major differences there. Now we're going to talk about some pros and cons of a spinning setup. For me, mostly as a bass fisherman and sometimes as a walleye fisherman, the spinning setup really shines with finesse techniques, as this little bitty Ned rig here. Some smaller baits, drop shots, Ned rigs, jigging a plastic, jigging a minnow for walleye fishing, stuff like that. I will be using a spinning rod because it allows more sensitivity when using smaller baits and smaller techniques. But with the sensitivity, I'm also able to cast these baits a lot farther, and casting distance is a major key when you're trying to catch fish and stay away from them and not spook them. A spinning rod and spinning reel allows me to cast these smaller baits a lot farther, increasing my bite ratio. One of the cons I will definitely say about a spinning rod is I will not really use this to pull fish from cover. As you can see here, when we're fishing thick matted vegetation, or if I'm finding walleyes around weed beds and stuff like that, a spinning rod does not do a very good job for me pulling fish from cover, allowing them to have the advantage. If I'm throwing baits into them, they can grab them, run into the wood, run into docks, run into weed beds, stuff like that. A spinning rod probably isn't your best option. Now talking about the bait casting setup, as you can see here, the complete opposite of the spinning rod. Our eye loops are definitely on top of the rod blank, and so sits our reel. When it comes to the bait casting reel, traditionally we're going to have two handles on here, and to disengage it's going to be pushing that button, which allows the line to run straight out of the reel, and instead of turning left to right or around in a circle, our spool is now kicking the line out itself. To re-engage this, and so you can't necessarily flip the switch over, to engage the bail itself, you're going to have to click it over with the turn of the handle, and then when you reel in, your line is going to come straight back on the spool, as we did right here. So one of the advantages of using a bait casting setup that when I talk about when I'm bass fishing especially, is normally a bait casting setup is going to be more hardy, stronger, longer rods, stuff like that, and I am able to pull fish from cover, pull them from the wood, weeds, docks, stuff like that. So if I am fishing, we're talking bass fishing here, if I am fishing at fish in cover, stuff like that, I will definitely be using a bait casting setup because it allows me to be in charge and pull them away from where they want to go. One of the downfalls of a bait casting setup we have to start with traditionally, which people stay away from bait casting setups, has to do with the bait casting reel. Very intimidating here because people, if you're not familiar with a bait casting reel, once you go to cast, this spool still moves. So if we go to cast out, okay, and it stops, this spool is going to keep moving a little bit, which causes the line to come off, and it causes what they call bird nest, rat's nest, backlash, all those things. So a lot of people stay away from a bait casting setup just because they're intimidated on getting a bird's nest and losing. If your line gets all ratted up in there, you can't get the knot out, you're gonna have to cut it off, which again, it gets to be expensive to spool up your reel. But with practice, just like anything else, you can become very proficient on this. So that is definitely one of the cons of learning or using a bait casting setup is your backlash, but that's just some of the things that happen. Also, again, I'm not going to be using lighter setups with this, or lighter techniques like your small drop shots, your tiny swim baits, stuff like that, because the bigger, thicker rods, more backbone, doesn't allow me to cast those just as far, and it's really hard to cast some of those smaller techniques with a Baitcast reel. So that's where I lean on my spinning reel. Sensitivity, you can definitely have sensitive bait casting rods. It's out there, but if we're comparing hand in hand a spinning rod versus a bait casting rod, I'm pretty sure, at least in my mind, a spinning rod will be more sensitive. We're going to talk about species here a little bit. We're going to talk about bass fishing and walleye fishing a little bit, because those are the two species that I chase after most of the time. When I come into walleye fishing, the techniques I'll be using when I'm chasing walleyes on this will be jig and plastic, jig and a minnow, something like that. I will troll some smaller bottom bouncers with a spinning rod, but nothing over 2 ounces, because it puts too much pressure on the rod itself. Casting smaller crankbaits, slip bobbering, anything like that, I'll definitely be using a spinning rod. Bass fishing, we're going to be throwing Ned rigs, drop shots, small swim baits, Nico rig, wacky rig, weightless baits like a weightless Cinco, stuff like that. All the stuff that's a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, I will be using for bass, but not around the thicker cover. That's where I'm gonna lean on my bait casting setup. When it comes to the bait caster, if we're gonna talk about walleyes, when we're trolling crankbaits or lead core, that's what we're gonna use in a bait casting setup. When we're gonna be trolling, or excuse me, we're gonna be bass fishing. Anything where I'm flipping into cover, jigs, Texas rigs, punching, spinner baits, chatter baits, sometimes a jerk bait, stuff like that. But on your lighter stuff, I will be leaning towards my spinning rod when on our lighter setups, except, excuse me, I misspoke, except a jerk bait. I have been throwing a jerk bait on a spinning rod, and I enjoy that a lot more than a bait casting rod. So this is a quick rundown of the spinning combo and the bait casting combo. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Hope this allows you to make a decision on what technique you want to be using, or what rod and reel combo that you want to get the next time you're out fishing. So if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell icon here for the KastKing channel. There's gonna be a lot more people coming out with videos with different ideas, techniques, and stuff like that. Also myself, so you'll be able to see their ideas and stuff like that, and you can learn from it and become a better angler. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out Preston Outdoors on all the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. You can check out Preston Outdoors and find some more information from me there. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Tune in next time.